Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about working with sellers. So you have me, Jane Stevens. I am going to be hosting this webinar for you guys today. If you have questions, please chat with me. We're going to be talking about everything from beginning to end. So right from that initial phone call, chatting with them about their property, preparing a CMA, going to the listing presentation, marketing that listing, and then, of course, how to handle offers. So a little bit from, start to end. So definitely ask me questions as we go along. So let's talk about that initial conversation. So we don't always get the come list me calls, as we refer to them in the real estate industry. Those are nice to get if you are doing marketing outside of Zolo, maybe a Facebook ad campaign and you're targeting sellers, you may get a call like that. But I think typically we get sellers through showing them properties to buy and then finding out that they do have a property that they need to sell, probably, within a couple of months in order to get their, in order to purchase whatever it is that they're looking for. So whether they're looking to move up or downscale the property that they have. So that's typically how we do get these seller leads from Zolo. But as I said, sometimes you may have an advertising campaign outside of Zolo where you are getting these phone calls. However it comes to you, it's always exciting to get a seller lead. And of course, you want to have a conversation with them about their property, how long they've owned the property, if they've done any upgrades to the property. Of course, if you have an opportunity to go and take a look before preparing a CMA, that's going to really help you. But we don't always have that opportunity. Sometimes, it is an appointment. So you're wanting to ask some questions initially so that by the time you get to the appointment, you are bringing comparables that you can show. But as I said, it's happened to other agents, to myself as well, where you are showing a property and they do say that they have a property to sell as well, and they just happen to be 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away, and so off you go, take a look at the property. That's always ideal because then you do have a very good visual as to what it is that they're looking to sell, and then that way you can let them know, of course, that you'll prepare some comparables, and now you've seen what it is that they have to sell, and it's easier for you to find those comps. But if you don't have that opportunity, then definitely ask them a bunch of questions. So as I said, how long they've been there, whether they've done any renovations, because if they've been there for a number of years, let's say, 10, 20 years, the pictures that you might pull up on MLS, if you're lucky enough to find it when it was previously listed, those pictures might be outdated. So asking them if they've done any renovations, have they added anything? Have they taken anything away? Hopefully not. Just getting a really good sense as to the condition of their home. So yeah, just verifying, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, of course, and it's always good to sneak in there the question of price point. So do they have a price point in mind? So some sellers will say, well, no, we have no idea. That's why we're calling you. But most sellers will know what their neighbor sold for, and they have an opinion as to whether or not their property is nicer than their neighbor's property or not, right? So you can definitely get a sense of what they're expecting by asking them that question. And as I said, if they don't give you a number, you can ask them in a different way. Have your neighbors sold recently? What did you think of what they sold their property for, right? And they may answer something like, yeah, they sold for 1.3, but ours is much nicer. So now hopefully when you look at those comparables that you can justify something that is maybe higher than 1.3. So asking them what their price point is, because you do want to go in there and have them choose you, right? And oftentimes they're going to choose the agent that, gives them the best list price, right? But you do want to be realistic because you don't want to be in a situation where you are taking a listing and then it's completely listed too high. You're not going to get showings. It's not going to sell, right? So hopefully they do have realistic expectations. Asking them as well if they are meeting with other agents, just so that you know how to prepare yourself. Ask them if they don't mind going last, or if you go last, just because that way you can also ask them what they liked about other agents' presentations that maybe you didn't include. So for example, if they met with somebody who was offering drone photography, then that's definitely something you can do as well, right? And maybe not something that you would mention in a regular listing presentation. So, it's kind of nice to know what you're up against. They can tell you, and then you can offer that as well. So there's a bit of the conversation that you want to be having with the sellers. Again, whether it's over the phone or in person. As I said, if you're doing showings for properties to purchase, this is the conversation you can have with them and go to the property to see, you know, the condition that it's in. So of course, once you do go to that meeting, this isn't a CRM training, but I do want to remind you guys that that is an appointment that you definitely want to be updating the system with. So you would want to go into that client profile, click on the update contact, and then you want to go into meeting and select listing pitch. So that's your listing presentation. If you do have the opportunity to go to one, always updating all of your activities in the CRM. And hopefully you can update later on, I'll just keep this on the slide, an agreement, right? So the whole point of going on a listing presentation is to get that listing agreement signed. So hopefully that's the next update that you're doing in the CRM. All right, so let's talk about preparing the CMA. So this is obviously something that you're going to want to look up through TREB. So logging into TREB and then doing a search of properties that have recently sold. So if it's the example of a condo, then it's, you know, it's easier, I find, to pull comparables because there are oftentimes multiple condos that have recently sold, hopefully the same floor plan, you know, maybe on a floor higher or a floor lower. So in that case, you know, you are able to get a really good sense as to what it should sell for because there's lots of activity in those buildings. So let's use that example. So residential condo, let's assume that that's the listing presentation you're going on. So you would want to go ahead and you would want to search unavailable properties. You also want to print out available properties. So what's on the market right now? What's the competition going to be like, right? And maybe print out 3 or all of them if there's, you know, 4 or 5 that are available at the moment, similar floor plan, 1 bedroom and den, whatever it is, print those out so you know, again, what your competition is and whether or not those are staged, you know, because you're going to be competing against those listings. So finding that out, and then also printing what is unavailable. So what has just sold and how much did it sell for? Also similar to that, you may also want to be printing off listings that have terminated. And those are often ones that, you know, may have been priced too high and they just didn't sell. So, you know, sometimes you can see that that same unit was relisted at a lower price. So really understanding, you know, what's too high so you don't go there. So yeah, printing off 3 available properties at the very least, 3 unavailable properties that have sold, and 3 unavailable properties that have been terminated. So those would be the listings that you should be printing out if you're going to do it manually, but certainly there's a more tech-savvy way to prepare a CMA, and I'm going to show you a couple of options, one in TREB, and the other one in TREB as well, but it is a service that you have to pay a little bit extra for. So it's the top CMA that you can already see over here on the left-hand menu. So it says top CMA there. So I'll show that one to you as well, because it's, as I said, a little bit more interactive. All right, so let's go ahead and again, just using the example of the condo comparables. So obviously you would want to go in and you would want to select that particular building. So if it's a series of 2 or 3 or 4 buildings, then make sure that, you know, you're putting in the street number, you know, as 5200, say, to 5300. If the buildings are, you know, 5220, 5240, that way you're going to get all of the comparables in all of the buildings. And then of course, you're not putting in the price range because that's what we're looking you know, to find out. So you want to go ahead and click on last status being sold. And then you really want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples, right? And not apples to oranges. So what I mean by that is putting in 1 bedrooms or 1+1, if that's the property that you're potentially going to be listing, you know, just so that you don't get, you don't get all the listings and you're accidentally comparing, you know, your 1+1 to a 2-bedroom. So really set those property characteristics. So you've got, you know, the 1+1 or the 1-bedroom without a den, whatever it is that you're potentially going to be listing. So making sure that you're looking at those comparables. And as I said, this is a good example. As I said, there are lots of comparables when you are looking at condos. So I like to go ahead and just click on the sold date column, and that will sort it chronologically. So I think you have to hit it twice so that you get the most recent comparables up at the top. And so those are going to be the ones that you want to share, right? So you don't want to be sharing properties that sold, you know, last year. It's not relevant anymore. So clicking on the sold date will give you the most recent comparables up at the top. And you can see here that it looks like it's a bit of a trend to list for $399.9, right? And the properties have sold for $395, $385, $399.5. So really printing these out, and looking at these comparables and taking a look at the pictures and seeing, why did one sell for 385 versus 395? Was one staged? Was one not? And so, that might be an argument to your potential sellers that, it's in their best interest to stage the property, right? So really taking a look at those. So I'm talking about printing them out, but as I said, there is the CMA that you can also prepare through Trev. And skipping ahead to that top CMA, the thing that I like about it is that you can add these comparables into top CMA. You can email that to them maybe after the listing presentation, maybe at the listing presentation, you have it on your iPad or your tablet or whatever it is. And then that way you can also click on the properties and go through the photos. So again, more interactive, they're going to actually be able to see the differences between the property as opposed to just printing them out where you only see one photo, unless of course you're printing out, a second and third page with all of the photos. So just keep in mind, it's really important to share the photos of each property so they can see why maybe one sold for more than the other. All right, so those are going to give you the recent comparables. And what you'll want to do is select the comparables that you're going to include in your CMA. So just selecting whichever ones you want to attach and then putting that into your listing cart. So creating a listing cart for your client so that later on, if you need to refer back to these comparables, you don't have to do that whole search all over again. You've basically saved them into this listing cart. So simply by clicking on whichever properties you want to include, I think you just click on the cart icon up here at the top, and then you can create a cart for that client, using the client's name probably, and then just adding that to the cart. And then you can refer back to them later on by clicking on the listing carts over there on the left-hand side. So yeah, there's the icon that you click on. And then this would pop up so you can create a new cart. Again, name it with your client's name and save those comparables into that cart. So there are two options within Trev that you can create a CMA. So the first one is free, it's available to you, and it's highlighted here in this red box. So CMA is going to give you a CMA that you can download as a PDF. As I said, I will also be talking about top CMA because it's a little bit more interactive. So clicking on CMA will pull those listings into your CMA report, right? So clicking on CMA will bring you to this screen, which is pretty blank looking if you don't already have listings or CMAs in there. So simply clicking on a new one, creating a new one, it will pull in those the listings from that listing cart and sort of populate a PDF, right? And it will do so after you fill in all of this information as much as possible. So putting in the contact details of your potential seller, their address, of course, and then including information about the property itself. And you can see up here, these are all the different sections that will be included in the CMA. So there's a contact page with all of the information, or all of your clients' information. Then there's the subject property. There's also information about you. And there's a title page and cover letter, which you can remove or you can keep in there. It's all sort of auto-generated, which you can obviously customize, but it's all there for you to use. It will pull in the comparables, and then it gives you an opportunity to make any adjustments. So say, for example, one condo has a view, the other one doesn't, how much is that view worth? So, talking to your clients about that. And actually they will tell you, if they had to pay a premium for that view, they'll tell you what it cost them at the beginning. For example, if they bought the condo from the developer, oftentimes, the developer will say, if you want the unit with the view, that's $50,000 extra, right? So if you are making adjustments like that, just talking to your seller about, what they, may have paid for that, especially if they bought it directly from the developer. So it does also include marketing and some other attachments. So we'll go through that. And really, this is the report that it's going to generate. So again, if you're competing for business, and this is the free CMA that is included with Trev, imagine you're up against 2 or 3 other agents and all of you show up with the same CMA report. It's going to be hard for the seller to determine, who's better. So as I said, we can kick it up a notch and use the CMA, the top CMA, because that way, again, that's going to set you apart. It's way more interactive. So it's definitely worth the investment. I think it's $30 a month, but of course, like with most things, there is a free trial. So I do recommend you trying it. So you can click on top CMA up at the top or over here on the sidebar, exactly the same way that you did with the CMA example over here. So selecting, all of the listings that you saved into that listing cart and then clicking on top CMA, which brings you to this. So this is where you will enter in the subject property, so the property that you're going to be going to potentially list. You can include some details over on the side. This will be auto-populated if this has been previously listed, and then you can go ahead and add those different sections similar to that CMA, but instead of it just printing out a PDF, it's going to give you, as I said, an interactive report. So this is basically what it generates, and you can see here that you can share the report by email. You can still download it as a PDF if you do want to have that hard copy, but as I said, you do have the ability to email this, and they'll be able to click through all of the comparables and look at all of the photos. So again, it's just going to be a much easier and more professional way of sharing this information so that you can determine a pricing strategy with your potential sellers. All right, so I think I have a question coming in, so let me just check on that. If subject property has never been on MLS, how do you work on it? Yeah, so then a great question. So if it's never been on MLS, you're going to have to get the information from your sellers. So again, using that example of maybe them having purchased the property directly from the developer, hopefully they still have all of those documents, right? The floor plan and everything else, but you will be able to find it on GeoWarehouse for the legal description and that sort of thing. So it does take a little bit more homework, but if it hasn't been previously listed, that's, yeah, you'll get some information from GeoWarehouse and you'll be getting some information from your clients. So hopefully that answers your question. Thanks for that. All right, so let's talk about something that sometimes gets skipped over. Again, imagining that you're in a situation, you're competing against other agents for the listing. What happens after that initial phone call or after that initial conversation where they do need to sell their home and before the actual meeting? What happens? Oftentimes, nothing. So in order to set yourself apart, there is something called a pre-listing package. And this might be something that you email to them. It doesn't have to be a fancy PowerPoint presentation or anything like that, but it could just be some information that you want to share with them before you actually show up to the listing appointment. And it may be sharing information about you, your experience. You might want to have, an agent biography. This could be as simple as, you attaching a link to your website that has, many times your website has an About Me page. So maybe you're just sharing that link with them so that they can take a look at that and get to know you a little bit better. And, don't just be all about, your professional experience. Also make it a little bit more personal, right? So if you have hobbies, sometimes people resonate with people that way. So definitely make it personal as well. You can definitely share with them examples of homes that you've sold in the past. If you haven't sold any homes, maybe including some testimonials, even if they were from buyers that you helped. And then you might want to give them a sneak peek into your marketing plan. So explain what it is that you do to get homes sold as fast as possible for the highest price possible. So letting them know who your team is, right? So you may not actually have a team that you hire and pay full-time salaries to, but these are people who you're aligned with. So maybe you have a home stager and a photographer. Somebody's going to take professional photos, so it's not going to be you on your cell phone taking these photos, but you have somebody coming in taking those high quality, high resolution photos. Maybe you're doing a virtual tour, definitely having a floor plan included as well. Let them know, whether or not you hold open houses. That might be a conversation to have right now, especially, with COVID. Open houses are happening again, but not as, regularly as they were before. So letting them know what your marketing plan is so that they know that you're proactive and that's what you do to get homes sold, right? So again, yeah, just having a strategic partners list or vendor list. So for example, if they do need to paint or they do need to repair something or whatever it is, you can put them in touch with those people. So hiring you is not just hiring one person, but several vendors at your fingertips. So if there's anything that needs done, you can help them. You can put them in touch with the right people. You may even want to have a checklist for preparing the home for sale. So oftentimes, people have lots of personal knickknacks around, and you might want to suggest decluttering that. It's a great way to do this is to bring in a stager, because the stager will kind of be that middle person between you and the seller. You won't have to bring that up. The stager can come in and make some suggestions. So, and talk about paint colors and maybe repositioning the furniture and that sort of thing. So again, just talking about who it is that you're aligned with, professionals that are going to come in and help you get the most amount of money for this listing. So definitely explaining home selling process. So that is, I've shared before some roadmaps that kind of give you an overview of the process, and these can be downloaded. I always recommend breakthroughbroker.com. It's a website that offers a whole bunch of different templates that you can download for free, and you can customize it. You can upload your picture and your contact information so it looks like it's your own marketing material. But definitely these are really key to include because it's a very concise way of explaining the home selling process, especially for people who maybe haven't done it before. Maybe this is their first time selling. So definitely wanting to explain the process. You may even want to include some local market data, right? So letting them know how long these, in this case, condos are sitting on the market for. What can they expect, right? Are they going to sell it in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month? Typically right now, definitely within 30 days. If it's a condo, probably in a couple of weeks. So just knowing your market and what's happening and how quickly things are moving, and paying attention to that when you're pulling those comparables. When were those condos listed, and when did they sell for? So including all of that and just really informing your sellers. It's also good to include, of course, some city and community information, but this is also feedback that you want to get from your clients, from your potential sellers. What do they love about their community? Because that's the information that you're going to want to share with potential buyers. So, having something like that questionnaire that you can ask them to complete, and also homework that you can maybe assign to them. So before the actual meeting, ask them to, maybe fill out the seller disclosure form, having a key provided to you. So, you're asking them to provide a copy of the key, and then gathering copies of, mortgage statements, any other paperwork relating to the property. And, it'll be a good sign if you show up to the listing presentation and they have a key already made for you. So, that means they're definitely motivated and interested in moving forward. So a pre-listing presentation or a pre-listing email, sets up your listing presentation really for success. So once you get to the property, let's talk about the listing presentation. What should you be bringing with you? So of course you want to be bringing that CMA. So you may want to have it, I do like to recommend that you have it in different formats. So sure, print out the MLS listings, even if it's static and they can't see the pictures, but also bring your iPad or your laptop so that you can show them that interactive CMA. Look at all the pictures from all the previous listings that sold. So bringing it in a printed version and also an electronic version, and really, following their lead. So typically at a listing presentation, they're going to give you the tour of the home, and then, you'll end up probably sitting at the kitchen table and having a conversation about the listing process. And it's really, again, as I said, following their lead. Some people, expect a show, right? And they're very formal, and they're expecting that PowerPoint presentation. So no problem, you have your laptop ready to go. Other people are more casual. They may want to have a conversation. They may be asking if you want tea or coffee. In that case, it may be more of a conversation type presentation. And in that case, you may want to, bring out the printed versions of things, and you can kind of talk about it a little bit more casually. So having something also bound, and take the time, go to Staples, get it bound professionally, and it does make a world of difference, and it's something that you can leave with them. So don't forget to bring the listing agreement, because that is the whole goal of the appointment, is that you want them to sign that listing agreement. So make sure you have that with you, so that yes, you can get it signed. You don't want to be leaving the property without that signed, giving them an opportunity to maybe change their mind. If it goes really well, then you want to have them sign that listing agreement. And of course, the MLS data information sheet is something else that needs to be prepared. So at the very least, have the listing agreement there so they can sign it. The MLS data information sheet, it's a long and tedious form, so you may want to just let them know that you're going to prepare that and send it to them for signature electronically. They do need to provide their photo ID. You need to make sure that they are who they say they are. So, that you record that so that you can later complete the FinTrack, and then also having them sign the working with a realtor. So don't forget the paperwork. That's what you're there to do. Last but not least, I recommend bringing the lockbox. If you've asked them to go ahead and get an extra set of keys, then hopefully you're ready with that lockbox so that you can assure them after the listing presentation, You're going to put that key in the lockbox. You're going to put the lockbox on the door, and the next day while they're out, they're at work, they're at the park, whatever it is, the photographer is going to be there. You're going to show up with the photographer, and everything will be ready, without them having to be bothered or to be there. So, everything will happen because you have access to the property, you've brought the lockbox, and they've given you the extra key. All right. So the listing presentation, again, I'm going to mention Breakthrough Broker, and you can download one of their templates. This is a listing presentation that is theirs, really. All I did was I changed the picture and added my contact information, and you can choose different colors. So if you do have branding that, you have a logo or whatever it is, you can certainly add that. And you can, as I said, choose your color. I think there's blue, there's red, there's green, whatever it is. And then you can download this in a few different ways. So you can download it so that it is a PowerPoint presentation. So if you are going to do a presentation on your laptop, you're ready to go. Excuse me, and you have that there. Otherwise, you can also print it, and this would be the listing presentation that you would have bound. So there are different sections in a listing presentation. There should be a section about you, maybe your past experience before real estate if you haven't been in real estate for very long. There should definitely be some information about your brokerage. So at Zolo, definitely talking about the number of, visitors that we get every month. So we're over 10 million visitors every month. So that's definitely something key to say. And I'm going to show you in some upcoming slides as well that if they do decide to list with Zolo, that they get featured on the first page of Zolo for that particular area. So if they are, in Toronto, then all somebody has to do is type in Toronto, and regardless of the price, they're going to be featured on that first page. It's going to be a property that people see right away. So talking to them about that. So you definitely want to be including in your listing presentation information about your brokerage, which will allow you as well to highlight some other features, such as the reverse buyer search, which again, I'll talk about it in a second. So definitely having a slide in there where you have the opportunity to talk about Zolo and why they should not just choose you, but choose the brokerage that you're with. So in addition to that, again, you can definitely throw in market stats in here. You can talk about the marketing process. You can have that timeline in here, again, the roadmap of the home selling process. So there's a bunch of information. And if you do go ahead and download this listing presentation from Breakthrough Broker, those slides are already created for you. It's just a matter of you tweaking them and customizing them to you and what you want to say. So exploring that today, it's a good thing to have. We do also have, if you are in Zolo's CRM, under the tools drop-down bar, there's a drop-down menu, and you'll also find a couple of PDFs that are there. Why sell with Zolo, why buy with Zolo, and this is a screenshot of that pamphlet. So, even if you don't use that one particularly, do go ahead and take a look at it, and you can include some of these, some of this wording into your own listing presentation. So, as you can see, we have surpassed the 2 million people each month who visit Zolo. So, just correcting things like that, because we are now, as I said, over 10 million people on the Zolo site. So taking a look at those PDFs and adding some of this information, if you choose to, into your own listing presentation. But definitely talking to them about the reverse buyer search. So this is something else that you have access to in your CRM. So this is, it's nice to be doing this presentation on your laptop, because you can switch back and forth between the listing presentation and then your Zolo CRM. So again, referring to the toolbar up at the top, you have the tools drop-down menu, and there you'll find the reverse search. So this is really cool to show any potential sellers, because it literally says there, in brackets, find buyers. So every agent is going to show up to a listing presentation and say that they have buyers, right? And really, maybe they do have, a couple of people who may be looking in that price range, maybe in that building. But, oftentimes they're hoping for the listing, put it on MLS, and then have, get the buyers that way. This is proof that when we show up to a listing presentation, we can say we actually have buyers. So again, using that condo example, if a similar condo just sold, the previous week, or maybe it's on the market now, you can go ahead and put that MLS number into the search bar, and clicking on Find Buyers gives you a list of everybody who has looked at that property and who has registered on the Zolo.ca website. So you'll have their name, you'll have their phone number, you'll have their email address. So, this is your list of buyers that you could reach out to promote your upcoming listing. So really cool to show your potential sellers that you do in fact have buyers, and you're not just hoping for the listing, putting it on MLS, and then crossing your fingers, waiting for people to call you. So this is actually a reverse buyer search. So definitely something to showcase. And I'm getting a question here. Buyer reverse search is not available. Okay, let me look into that. Last time I checked, which was not long ago, it was still available. So I'm just going to quickly check on my phone here. And if it's not there, I will reach out to, reach out to your growth managers if you don't see it. But I'm just doing a quick search. Yeah, reverse search, find buyers. So it's on the drop-down menu under tools. So in your CRM, you're going to the toolbar, the tools drop-down menu. You should find reverse search there, and clicking on that will take you to the screenshot that you see here. All right, so hopefully you're able to find that. And then, as I already mentioned, if they do choose to list with Zolo, this is one of the reasons why they might want to do that, because they do get featured. So, we get visitors, not just, if you're in Toronto, it's not just visitors that are living in Toronto. These are people, who are looking to maybe move to Toronto from, internationally, right? So a lot of people use the site. And if they're thinking about moving to Toronto, if they type that into the search bar, they're going to see all of the listings. But of course, Zolo is going to recommend their listings first. So this is what I was mentioning before. Anybody who types in Toronto, they will see the featured listings on the first page. So again, just really cool to showcase that to your sellers. All right, so commission always comes up in a listing presentation. So, hopefully you're getting the full 5% that you deserve, 2.5 for yourself, 2.5 for the buyer, really explaining. There are some great sheets that you can download as well, just talking about the splits and where everything goes, but really trying to go for the full 5%. Of course, if they're also going to be buying something with you, then you may want to work out a deal where maybe you are offering a little bit less, but just know that here at Zolo, we do not list for less than 1%. So, and just letting them know that, right? So I know there's discount brokers out there, but, really trying to hold on to as much commission as you possibly can. All right. So let's just jump ahead to marketing. So once you do have the listing, that's always exciting and a little bit overwhelming if it's your first listing. So let's talk about marketing. Before I jump into that, I'm just going to address this comment. Yeah, so if you're getting an error when you're trying to find out buyer reverse search, just reach out to your growth manager and find out why. I was able to pull it up on my phone. Maybe try it on your phone as well to see if that's working. Where can I find a cheat sheet for commissions? Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I don't have an example included in this presentation, but what I'm going to do is I'll look one up, and then you can, I'll post it on the workplace group. There's one as well that's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can literally walk through the Excel spreadsheet with your sellers, asking them what it is that they need to net, right? So yes, you're talking about list price, but what is it that they need to walk away with, right? And you can do some reverse math to, still include your commission and still having them net what they need to net. So I'm gonna try to find one of those as well. There's a bunch of them. A lot of them are American, so you have to kind of tweak it because there's different costs and stuff. But let me find it, and I will post it on the workplace group. Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Okay, so let's talk about marketing. So this is the fun stuff. All right. So definitely talking to your clients about staging. So if you do have that example where the same style condo, one sold for $385 and one sold for $395, talking to them about the differences. Maybe the difference was that one was staged. Maybe the difference was that one had professional photos and the other one didn't, right? So a small investment is going to actually, make quite the difference in the types of offers that they're going to get. So this is actually, these are two pictures. It's the same room. So you can see, the one on the left was taken with a cell phone, so not a professional photo. You can see it was very much a bachelor pad with the, the projector on the popcorn box and the screen rolled down. So, a little bit of staging magic, and you see the picture on the right. So, they included some artwork, and kind of kept the positioning of the furniture the same, but hid those cords and rolled up the screen and opened the blinds, really bringing in lots of natural light. So huge difference, and a lot of showing requests as a result. If you were a buyer looking at these two properties, you'd probably be more interested in the property on the right than on the left, and it's the same one, just properly marketed. All right. Marketing materials. So if you don't have this already done, reach out to Hamid at Sidekicks Media. He can prepare these for you. Again, we do have the Zolo branding, but if you have your own that you've already invested in, your own colors, your own logo, whatever that is, then make sure you have a for sale sign, your open house signs if you're going to be doing open houses, and then the MLS sheet at the very least, but hopefully that's something that you're including in, a feature sheet or a brochure, if you will. So having some kind of marketing materials that you use all the time, and then obviously customizing the feature sheet or the brochure, dependent on the property. So reaching out to Hamid, he can help with all of that, so you guys are ready to go when you do have a listing. Okay, we have a question about stagers. Yeah, so do the sellers pay for it? Yeah, you can do it in a few different ways. I know that there are agents here at Zolo who are also stagers, and they have some pieces that they bring in, so it's something that they offer. I do know that there are other agents who will pay for it. Maybe they have a stager that they're working with closely, and they work out some sort of a deal. But I would say for the most part, sellers are asked to pay for the staging, so that's something that you can request as well. It's really just going to be what you're up against. So if they are interviewing another agent and that agent is offering staging, maybe that's something that you consider including, right? And it just, the costs vary. So you do want to make sure that you're not offering to do something that is going to be, maybe over your head. So yeah, maybe reaching out to a few stagers, seeing if you can work something out with them, so that when you do go on a listing presentation, it's something that that you can include. But just so you know, yes, sellers sometimes pay for it. Photographers as well. No, the photographers, that's typically paid for by the agent. And honestly, it's not hugely expensive. It's $150, I think, for 20 photos. It just starts to add up when you add the virtual tour. That might be another $100. So that cost should definitely be covered. But staging can sometimes be, $1,000 plus just to stage it. And then if it does sit on the market for longer than 30 days, then you're looking at additional costs. So include the photography, but have a discussion with your sellers about staging. Awesome. Okay, we have a question too about reverse search. So when entering the MLS number, is it only Zolo's listings that are visible? No, any MLS number, you can plug that into reverse search. In fact, go ahead and if there's a property down the street from you that you would really love to sell, go ahead and plug in that MLS number into reverse search and see who's looking at that property. And if they haven't been contacted by another Zolo agent, feel free to reach out and see if you can get that sold. So it's literally there as a tool for you to use, but definitely something to highlight in a listing presentation. All right. Yeah, my pleasure. Okay. Yeah, so marketing materials, again, this was created by Hamid at Sidekicks Media. So if you do have a property that's coming up, then you may want to tell your clients or your, as I said, potential sellers, that this is something that you do, that you're going to put together a postcard and you're going to send it out to the neighborhood. Again, this does get costly. Direct mail is not cheap. So, just know what the cost is going to be before you offer to do it. But yeah, you can send out postcards saying you have this property that's coming soon, but you really want to be sending out postcards after it's sold to hopefully generate, some more business in that same area. But there are other ways to do this and, not take on the cost of direct mail. You may do a Facebook ad, right? So you might market the property, you might target that neighborhood with a Facebook ad as opposed to doing the direct mail. It's much more cost effective, but it's up to you if you want to go ahead and do these. As I said, it is a good marketing piece once you have sold something, so that the neighbors know what it is that, what it's sold for and how quickly you were able to do it. And of course, they have your contact information. So this is something that you might want to implement in your business, but even you might want to go ahead and this is probably the only time I would ever recommend door knocking, just personally, but I know lots of agents do door knocking all the time. But if you do have a listing coming up, maybe initially before it does hit the market, you can do some door knocking, let them know that you have a listing coming up, and maybe share something like this with them, right? Coming soon feature sheet, so that they're aware of it, and maybe you can invite them to an open house if you're going to do that. So different ways to market the property. This is definitely part of it, and you can implement it. It just keep in mind it is a little bit costly to do the direct mail. This is another example, and this is more of a general promo piece, so not necessarily about a property, but this is one just marketing himself. So this is something else that Hamid put together. So feel free to reach out to him if you're looking to design some of those. If you are going to do an open house, make sure you have some sort of a sign-in sheet where they can put their name and their phone number and their email address. Honestly, open houses are such a great lead source. If they're not working with a realtor and they're looking to buy as soon as possible, it's nice to have that questionnaire so that you know who's coming to your open house and who you might want to stay in touch with. So open houses are, as I said, a great way to generate more business. It's just difficult right now. So if you do have sellers who are willing to do open houses, then go ahead and see if you can do a couple of weekends. All right, so I already mentioned this before. When you do have that agreement signed, don't forget to go into your CRM and update the agreement activity with your listing agreement. So making sure you're updating your activity, always, always, always. All right, so let's talk about the listing. So here at Zolo, we upload our own listings. So you want to be going into Treb. We get this question all the time. It's really simple. It's right there for you. It's the add edit button. So if you have a listing, you must have your listing agreement signed. You have to have that MLS data information sheet also signed, and then you're authorized to go ahead and upload that listing. So clicking on the add edit button is going to take you to this screen right here, and you're just going to go ahead and plug in residential condo with the example that we've been using, and then you're going to select for sale. If it has been listed before, you can go ahead and select clone listing and use the MLS number from before, and that will auto-populate most of the information, but you still need to have it in the MLS data information sheet. So making sure that that listing agreement is signed. And you do have here a couple of circles up at the top. So say, for example, they do want to list it. They're going to list it with you. You're going to get this listing agreement signed, but they have to declutter. They want to move some appliances out and replace them with other ones. Whatever the case is, have the listing agreement signed, and then maybe have them initial here that it's going to be an MLS agreement. So in other words, it will be listed on MLS. But just enter in a date there saying, maybe a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and then also have them initial the exclusive circle because that will allow you to promote the listing between now and 2 weeks from now when it's actually ready to hit the market. So you'll be able to go ahead, and there's lots of ways that you can market a property exclusively. You might be part of, Facebook groups where, people are looking to buy or sell in that area. You might want to post it on Kijiji, on Facebook Marketplace coming soon. So that allows you to do that. So make sure that you have that exclusive listing agreement signed as well. And then just entering the dates so everybody knows, effective immediately, you have an exclusive listing, and in 2 weeks, you'll be posting it on MLS. All right, so there's the data information sheet. Lots of information. The mandatory fields are highlighted here in pink. So again, there is some homework required to fill this in. You will be referring to, previous listing. You'll be asking your sellers. You'll be pulling information from Geo Warehouse. So make sure that all of this is correctly inputted. And then something else that really needs to be mentioned is if you do decide, you and your seller decide that, we're going to drop the price. It's, we're not getting very many showings. We haven't gotten any offers. It's been a couple weeks. Because you have access to it, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to just jump in there and change the list price. You need the paperwork. So this is what you would need to do. There's an amendment to the listing agreement. So you would need your sellers to initial it before you go into Treb and change that list price. If you're going to extend the expiry date, same thing, making sure that your seller initials this form. So you want to have this done before you make any changes in MLS. You need to have that authorization from the seller. All right, so let's talk about offers. So it's always very exciting once you get those offers, and it's up to you. This is another conversation to have with your seller. Do they want to accept offers anytime, or are they going to hold off? And again, that's going to be part of what you talk about during that listing presentation, taking a look at the comparables. What did they do? What generated the most amount of interest, right? And if you do decide to hold off on offers, then we do have a session coming up next week, and we're going to talk exclusively about multiple offers and how to deal with that, both on the buying side and on the selling side. But for our purposes today, we're just going to assume that the seller is accepting offers anytime. So you definitely want to present it to the seller as quickly as possible, and then there are some options there to accept the offer, to reject the offer, or to counter the offer, right? So really knowing the terms of the offer. If there are more than one, then that's going to be what sets each offer apart, right? The terms of the offer. So what's the price? What's the closing date? What are the conditions, and what are the exclusions, inclusions, right? So making sure that you have some sort of a list if there are multiple offers, or a summary that you can share with the seller. So it's really easy to determine, okay, this is offer one, this is offer two, and clearly offer three is better, right? So you want to be presenting it in a way that's organized, so that the seller can make, a decision easily with all the information in front of him or her. So yeah, knowing the terms, talking to the seller about that, and deciding what to do with it, countering it, accepting it, or just rejecting it if it's really low. Yes, so this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again later. Can the seller terminate the listing and go with another brokerage? Yeah, so great question. There is a holdover period. So yes, the listing agreement can be canceled, but there is a holdover period. So just talk to your growth manager about that. And yeah, it's situational as well. So yeah, typically you'll want to wait until the listing agreement expires. So yeah, talking to your growth manager about that if somebody's wanting to cancel it. Okay, so as I said, countering an offer, take a look at what the buyer is asking, and, don't outlining the details of the offer, but, not losing it over, small details. If it's, sometimes people ask for window coverings, and they're, not included, or whatever the case is, just is it worth losing a deal over something so minor? So, really talking to your seller, if there are multiple offers, that minor detail might be the deal breaker for that particular offer, because there's probably another one where they're not asking for things that aren't included. So negotiating back and forth, and countering if there is something that the seller isn't pleased with. So, I mean, there's so many different situations, so many different offers that might come in, with different dates or different conditions. Really, I think the feedback that I've been getting from listing agents is that it's nice to see clean offers. And I don't just mean, no conditions. That's, if you're in multiple offer situations, it's obviously best to go in firm. But what I mean by that is I've heard from listing agents that they've received offers from buyer agents, and there's a 3 or 4 or 5 page Schedule A, and it's just too much. So really keeping it simple, and, making sure that it's clear what it is that you're offering, and then, yeah, presenting that to the seller. So let me know if you guys have questions, because yes, as I said, next week, I didn't jump into multiple offers because we do have that set aside for next week. So next Tuesday, I believe it is, we're going to be talking about multiple offers, both when you're representing buyers, so how to compete, how to really set your offer apart, and then of course, when you're representing a seller, how to present those offers in an organized way so that your seller can make an informed decision. All right, detour question, love it. How can a realtor know his or her buyer client moved to another realtor and made a deal? I often hear other realtors finding out their clients ended up with another realtor. Just curious. Yeah, how do you find out? Well, I mean, eventually you can do a geo warehouse search, and you can search for them by name. And then if the deal has already closed, you'll know that they have, a property that they bought. And then you can reverse search that, go into MLS, look up the property, see who the realtor was. So that's kind of the, if they don't disclose it initially to you, because I think sometimes people will, if you're working with buyers and then you follow up with them and, you're wondering if they're still interested, sometimes people really don't understand the process, really don't understand, how we work as agents. And they might tell you, oh, we saw, something last weekend with the listing agent, and, we already bought something. So sometimes you find out that way directly from your buyer client. But if they've just become evasive, they don't pick up, you know, then that might be the way to find out. Going through Geo Warehouse, but of course you'd have to wait for it to close. And then, yeah, taking a look at that listing on MLS and seeing who the realtor was. And if you do have a BRA, then there's an argument there that you may be able to go after your commission. So if, of course, it was in the area that you had the BRA for. So hopefully that answers your question. Great question, by the way. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any other questions. I know there's lots to talk about with sellers, and this is kind of a high level overview, but yeah, join me next week. We'll talk about multiple offers, lots to get into there. I'm going to try to have a guest with us who won a few deals in multiples, so we'll find out their secrets. Awesome. What about private listings? So what do you mean by that? Are you, is that exclusive listings that you're talking about? Because is the process the same as an MLS listing? So with a private listing and exclusive listing, it's not going on MLS, so you're not going to get those leads, but or that interest, but there are other ways of promoting an exclusive listing. You know, I mentioned maybe Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups that are, you know, it's realtors that are, you know, selling that same area, and you may want to promote the listing there. But ideally, you're wanting to hopefully double end a deal that you have as an exclusive. So if that's the case, then maybe doing a Facebook ad. I feel like I've mentioned Facebook quite a few times today, but that's a really good way of promoting a private listing. You know, again, posting it on Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, whatever that is, and then yeah, seeing if there's interest that way. So doing some sort of a paid ad through Facebook would probably generate some interest there. So yes, the process is different because you're not posting it on MLS, but you can still generate leads. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. How do you make sure on the reverse search that they are not engaged with another agent? Great question again. So there are icons right beside each lead's name. So if you see a green asterisk, that means that they're a new lead. They haven't inquired about a property. It's not until they inquire about a property that you'll see that icon change to a hot flame. So when it's a hot flame, that means that's a hot lead. They've inquired about a property. Whoever they're assigned to would have been notified that they were inquiring about a property, and hopefully that agent has reached out. But you can, if you click on that lead, you'll be taken to the client profile page, and then you can see if there has been any interaction. And if there hasn't, then definitely reach out and see how you can help. All right. Can you do one agreement when doing exclusive and MLS? Yeah, so as I said, the listing agreement up at the top has those two bubbles. So it's exclusive or it's MLS, and you can have both of them signed. And then just put the date in there. So say, for example, you know, it's going to hit the, it's going to go on MLS in a week, then, you know, put that date in, and then, you know, say it's exclusive between now and that date. So there you go. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Is that two different forms? No, it's the same form. So it's the listing agreement. And let me just see, I'm just going to jump back up to my slides because I think I shared that with you recently. Right here. So it's Form 200, the listing agreement. There's two circles up at the top. One says it's an MLS listing agreement, and the other one says it's an exclusive listing agreement. So if they don't want their property on MLS, then you're only going to have this second circle initialed. But if they, you know, if you're going to be listing it right away, then you're only going to have the first circle initialed. But as I said, if you are going to give them time to prepare their property, there's going to be stagers, there's going to be photographers, it's going to take them a week to declutter, then yeah, you can say exclusive listing agreement effective immediately, and then you can put MLS service agreement, you know, October 1st or whatever date you decide. So it's the same form. Awesome. Okay. No problem. My pleasure. All right. So I think I've covered everybody's questions. Good. I'm glad you found that informative. And I will, as I said, post a few things on the workplace group that you guys asked me for. And if there's anything else, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Yes, the webinar is recorded and it will be posted as well. Awesome. All right. See you on the next webinar. Bye, guys.